All right, so a lot of people have been asking me about editing. So I decided I would do a different picture maybe every other day or so, with a specific emphasis on a particular thing that this photo needed, along with the additional things that I normally do for every picture. And in this case, I wanted to talk about contrast and how you can preserve detail by adjusting it. Okay, so what I'm doing is going through a file here. The main purpose of this video is to show you how adjusting the contrast and the blacks can kind of bring more detail into your photos. First thing I did is open this shot up. For some reason, it was a little muddy and the white balance was off a lot. Could have been something with the lights that game. This is from the Temple Army game last year. So you notice here, this file is looking really muddy. And if you notice how bringing just the contrast down and adjusting the exposure up a little bit, I think I was underexposed a little, and that's why it had that look to it. So just adjusting the contrast and the blacks alone brings all of the detail back into the shots. Bringing the contrast down, in particular in this case, I brought it all the way down. And I was tweaking the white balance a little bit here. These are usually my default settings for sharpening in Camera Raw, um, and that's basically it. If I see a little noise in the shot, I may bring up the noise reduction, but generally those are my default settings for sharpening in Camera Raw. So here I am adjusting the white balance again. Again, I'm tweaking the highlights because the whites are a little bit blown. Again, I'm playing with the blacks, like decreasing the blacks again. It's like the contrast, bringing the contrast and adjusting with the blacks does a lot for the detail. After I do that, then I'll go into cropping the picture. I'm using Adobe Camera Raw, of course, and here I'm trying to get my horizon straight because it was off a bit, and I'm using the original camera ratio when I crop. I'll use original camera ratio. And if that happens to work to my taste, where it fits the composition, I'll stay with that. If not, I'll go to regular ratio and make my adjustments based on the picture. I don't really crop for print size or anything like that. I crop for composition. Like for me, I'm more of an aesthetic editor, and I don't work for like a wire service or anything that requires me to have particular dimensions on my photographs. So here I'm back in Camera Raw again. And now I'm going back to the sharpening panel, and I see some more noise in the picture. So what I'm doing is bringing the noise reduction up, which of course is going to decrease the detail in the picture. So what I do is I have a default setting where I just have clarity and sharpness up halfway, and I'll go in and brush that over the players or the subject matter. Uh, and I try to avoid the skin and just do the details of the uniforms, helmets, and that sort of thing. And it's just like clarity halfway up and sharpness halfway up. But again, you see I'm bringing the contrast down, and that's bringing more detail into the pictures. The muddy look that you see with pictures it can always be helped with adjusting the contrast in the blacks, and then sometimes bringing up the shadows, particularly for a shot in a certain type of light. The other thing I'll do sometimes is bring up the some of the colors of the uniform. So in this case, it's the red temples, red uniforms. I'll bring up the red just to bring up the saturation in the colors on the uniform, but not saturation of the overall picture, so that it doesn't cause problems with skin tones and that sort of thing. And that's basically it for this picture. It's pretty simple. Again, like a high contrast pictures can hide a lot of detail in the images. Bringing the contrast down too low can give it that kind of hazy, washed out look. So it's just a matter of adjusting it based on what looks good. The thing about editing is that you can't just apply the same things to every photo. Each photo is a very individual piece of art within itself. and you have to make adjustments based on that particular thing. There's some photos where I increase contrast and increase the blacks depending on the image. So you kind of learn these tools over time and develop them to your taste.